Hi, I'm Sarah Chen, and my story is about betrayal, resilience, and sweet karma. 5 years ago, I thought I had it all: a successful online business, a loving husband, and supportive in laws. But life has a way of showing you people's true colors when money and power are involved. I met James at a startup conference in San Francisco. He was charming, ambitious, and seemed to share my entrepreneurial spirit. After a whirlwind romance, we got married, and I moved into his family's sprawling estate in Silicon Valley. His parents, Richard and Victoria Wong, welcomed me warmly, or so I thought. The first year was like a dream. I ran my successful e-commerce business from home, while James worked at his father's tech company. My in-laws bragged about having a self-made businesswoman in the family, and I foolishly believed they were proud of me. I even started contributing $5,000 monthly to household expenses, wanting to show my appreciation for letting us live in their home. Everything changed when my business really took off. I had developed a unique dropshipping platform that caught the attention of major investors. Suddenly, I was making more money than James, and the dynamic in the house shifted dramatically. Victoria started making snide comments about how I spent too much time working instead of being a proper wife. Richard would interrupt my business calls, claiming I was being too loud. But I kept my head down and focused on growing my company, secretly saving money for our own place. One evening during a family dinner, I noticed James acting strangely. He barely looked at me and kept whispering with his mother. After dinner, he asked me to meet him in his father's study. The entire family followed, and I felt my stomach knot with anxiety. "Sarah, we need to talk about your savings," James said, his voice cold and unfamiliar. "Dad's been monitoring your business accounts, and we know you've saved $87,000. I felt the blood drain from my face. "You've been monitoring my accounts? That's illegal." Richard stepped forward, his expression smug. "Nothing's illegal when it's family. Besides, I was right to keep an eye on you. Hiding money from your husband? That's shameful." "I wasn't hiding anything," I protested. "I was saving for our future, for our own house." That's when Victoria dropped the bomb. "James doesn't need a house with you. He's been seeing someone else, someone more suitable. A good Chinese girl from a respected family." I looked at James in shock, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. "Her name is Lisa," he mumbled. "We've been together for 6 months. Her family's important to Dad's business, and we need your savings to buy us a house." The room spun as their words sank in. 6 months. Half a year of lies and betrayal. And now they wanted my hard-earned money for my husband's affair partner? "You're insane if you think I'm giving you my money," I said, my voice shaking with anger. Victoria's face darkened. "You ungrateful witch. After everything we've done for you, this money belongs to the family. James is your husband. Everything you have is his." "That's not how it works," I shot back. "My business is mine. My savings are mine. And James can take his new girlfriend and—" I never finished that sentence. James slapped me hard across the face, sending me stumbling backward. "You're nothing without this family," he snarled. "We made you. We can break you just as easily." Holding my burning cheek, I looked at my husband, the stranger I thought I knew, and saw nothing but contempt in his eyes. His parents stood behind him, Victoria smirking and Richard looking calculating as ever. "You have 24 hours to transfer the money," Richard announced, "or we'll make sure you regret ever starting that little business of yours." I ran to our bedroom, locked the door, and collapsed on the bed. Through the walls, I could hear them discussing their plans for my money as if my rejection was just a minor inconvenience. They were so confident in their power over me, so sure I would give in. That night, as I lay there listening to James laugh on the phone with his girlfriend, I made a decision. I wouldn't just protect my money. I would make them regret ever threatening me. Little did they know, I had been recording our conversations for months, ever since I first noticed something was off. I needed time to plan my next move carefully. These people had shown me their true faces, and I knew they wouldn't hesitate to destroy everything I built. But I had something they didn't expect: proof of their illegal activities, carefully documented over months of living under their roof. Tomorrow would be the beginning of their nightmare, but for now, I had to play my cards right. I wiped my tears, opened my laptop, and started putting my plan into motion. They thought they had me cornered, but I was about to show them just how wrong they were. I woke up early the next morning, my mind clear and focused. While the house was still quiet, I began executing the plan I'd worked on all night. First, I transferred most of my savings to a secure offshore account, something I'd set up months ago when I first noticed James acting suspiciously. Then, I logged into my business dashboard and changed all my passwords, enabling two-factor authentication. Around 8 a.m., Victoria knocked on my door. "Sarah, come down for breakfast. We need to discuss the transfer." I took a deep breath and headed downstairs, laptop in hand. The entire family sat at the dining table, looking expectant. Lisa, James's girlfriend, was there too, a pretty, young woman in expensive designer clothes, sitting in what used to be my place. "Well?" Richard demanded. "Is the money ready?" I opened my laptop, appearing nervous. "Yes, I'm ready to transfer it. But first, I want to show you something." They leaned forward eagerly as I turned the screen toward them. Instead of a bank transfer, they saw themselves. Footage from last night's confrontation, along with dozens of recorded conversations proving their illegal business dealings. "What is this?" James sputtered, his face turning red. "Insurance," I replied calmly. "I have footage of Richard accessing my private business accounts illegally. I have recordings of your threats. I have evidence of the tax fraud you've been committing through your shell companies." Victoria jumped up, knocking over her coffee. "You little snake. How dare you spy on this family?" "I learned from the best," I shot back. "Did you really think I wouldn't protect myself? That I would just hand over my life's work?" Richard's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. "Delete those files immediately or I'll—" "You'll what?" I interrupted. "Destroy my business. Ruin my reputation." "Go ahead, but everything I have will be sent to the SEC, the IRS, and every major news outlet in Silicon Valley. How do you think your precious business partners will react?" Lisa looked between James and his parents, confusion written all over her face. "What's going on? What tax fraud?" I smiled sweetly at her. "Oh, you don't know? Your future father-in-law has been running quite the scheme. Would you like to see the details?" "Enough," James shouted, slamming his fist on the table. "You're bluffing. You wouldn't dare expose us." I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Richard's voice clearly discussing how to evade taxes through offshore accounts. "Try me." The room fell silent. Richard and Victoria exchanged worried glances while James looked like he might be sick. "What do you want?" Richard finally asked, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. "First, I'm leaving, with all my money. Second, you'll sign a document stating that neither you nor your company will ever attempt to interfere with my business. Third, you'll pay me $100,000 in compensation for the emotional distress and attempted extortion." "That's ridiculous," Victoria screeched. "We won't give you a penny." I stood up, gathering my things. "Fine. I'm sure the press will love hearing about how the great Richard Wong tried to steal from his daughter-in-law. I wonder how many of your investors will stick around after that." Richard raised his hand to silence his wife. "Wait. Let's discuss this reasonably." Over the next hour, we negotiated terms. Richard, ever the businessman, tried to haggle, but I held firm. By lunch, I had a signed agreement and a transfer confirmation for the compensation money. As I packed my belongings, Lisa appeared in my doorway. "I had no idea," she said quietly, "about any of this." I looked at her expensive handbag, probably bought with my monthly contributions to the household. "Word of advice? Get out while you can. They'll do the same to you eventually." She nodded slowly, twisting her engagement ring. My old engagement ring, I noticed with amusement. When everything was packed, I walked out to my car. The family stood on the porch, their faces a mix of hatred and humiliation. James stepped forward, grabbing my arm. "You'll regret this," he hissed. "Nobody crosses our family." I pulled away from his grip. "No, James. You'll regret ever thinking you could control me. By the way, I've already sent copies of everything to my lawyer. If anything happens to me or my business, it all goes public." As I drove away, I felt lighter than I had in months. But this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of my revenge. They thought they'd taught me a lesson about power. I was about to teach them one about karma. I checked into a luxury hotel downtown and spent the next few days setting up my new life. I leased a beautiful apartment with a view of the bay and hired additional security for both my home and office. Then I focused on the next phase of my plan. Remember how I mentioned my dropshipping platform had caught investors' attention? Well, one of those investors was Richard's biggest business rival, Marcus Chen, no relation. I scheduled a meeting with him, armed with detailed knowledge of Richard's illegal operations. Marcus welcomed me into his sleek office with genuine warmth. Sarah, I've been following your work. Your platform is impressive. Thank you, I replied. But that's not why I'm here today. How would you like to acquire Richard Wong's company for pennies on the dollar? His eyebrows shot up. I'm listening. I laid out everything I knew about Richard's fraudulent activities, showing Marcus enough evidence to prove I wasn't bluffing. By the end of our meeting, we have formed a partnership that would change everything. You realize they'll come after you when this is done, Marcus warned. I smiled, thinking of the documents safely stored in multiple locations. Let them try. The next few months were a carefully orchestrated dance of revenge and justice. Marcus and I worked together to systematically expose Richard's illegal activities, not to the public, but to his most important business partners and board members. One by one, investors started pulling out, citing concerns about company practices. Richard's company stock began to plummet. I watched from my new office as the empire he built on fraud and intimidation started crumbling. Victoria's social media was suddenly quiet. No more posts about charity galas or luxury vacations. James had to sell his Ferrari, and Lisa mysteriously disappeared from his life. Then came the day I'd been waiting for. My phone rang with an unknown number. Sarah? It was Victoria, her voice trembling. We need to talk. I let the silence stretch uncomfortably. I'm listening. Please, she whispered, pride cracking. Everything's falling apart. The board is forcing Richard to step down. Our assets are frozen. James is facing criminal charges for corporate espionage. We need your help. I thought about all the nights I'd cried myself to sleep in their house. The humiliation of being slapped by my husband, their smug faces as they demanded my savings. Meet me at the Four Seasons tomorrow at noon, I said finally. Bring everyone. The next day, I arrived at the hotel to find them already waiting. They looked terrible. Richard had aged years and months. Victoria's designer clothes were last season's, and James looked broken. I sat down, smoothing my Chanel dress, a recent gift to myself. Well? Please, Richard croaked. Make it stop. Tell Marcus to back off. We'll give you anything. I took a sip of water, letting them stew. You know what the funny thing is? None of this would have happened if you'd just been decent people. If you hadn't tried to steal from me, hadn't threatened me, hadn't treated me like garbage. Victoria dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. We were wrong. So wrong. Please, Sarah. Remember what you said to me, that I was nothing without you. Well, look at us now. I gestured at their haggard appearance. Everything you're experiencing, the humiliation, the fear, the helplessness. That's what you tried to make me feel. James reached for my hand. I pulled away in disgust. But unlike you, I continued, I'm going to show mercy. Not because you deserve it, but because I'm nothing like you. I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Inside is a deal from Marcus. He'll buy your company at a fair price, enough for you to live comfortably, though not in luxury. All charges against James will be dropped. In exchange, you'll sign over all control and never work in this industry again. They frantically reviewed the documents as I stood to leave. Sarah, James called out. I'm sorry, for everything. I was stupid and greedy and… Save it, I cut him off. Your apology means nothing to me. Sign the papers, take the deal, and stay out of my life. Forever. As I walked away, I heard Victoria burst into tears. The sound, once painful to me, now meant nothing. I had risen from their attempts to destroy me, stronger and more successful than ever. Today, my company is valued at over $200 million. I run it from a beautiful office overlooking the bay, where I employ over 100 people, all of whom are treated with respect and dignity. Sometimes I hear about the Wongs through mutual acquaintances. They live in a modest house now, their social circle drastically shrunk. James works as a middle manager at a small tech firm, his dreams of inheriting a business empire shattered. But I don't think about them much anymore. Their attempt to break me only made me stronger, teaching me valuable lessons about trust, power, and the importance of protecting yourself. My success is no longer about revenge. It's about building something meaningful, something that helps others achieve their dreams. Last week, I received a letter from Lisa. She thanked me for the warning I'd given her that day and told me she'd dodge a bullet by leaving James. She's running her own successful business now, inspired by how I stood up to the Wongs. Sometimes, when I'm mentoring young entrepreneurs, they ask me the secret to my success. I tell them it's not just about business acumen or market strategy. It's about standing your ground, knowing your worth, and never letting anyone steal your dreams. The money the Wongs tried to steal from me seems insignificant now, but the lesson was priceless. Your greatest power lies not in wealth or family connections, but in refusing to be broken by those who underestimate you. Looking out over the bay from my penthouse apartment, I raise a glass to the future, not just mine, but to anyone who's ever been told they're nothing. Because sometimes being underestimated is the greatest gift your enemies can give you. It gives you the power to prove them wrong in ways they never imagined possible.